Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe, entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome to episode 147 of the Industry Angel. Great to have you back with us today. We've got a fantastic episode for you. But I had a tough time recording this one. I had to stitch together 7 audio files and sync them all together. But it's definitely worth it. Thanks for all the kind messages as usual that have been coming in, and for your reviews as well, especially from outside of the UK, such as Scotty May No from the US. Thanks so much for that. I also received a great review from a high school teacher who uses the podcast in the classroom. So be sure to let me know who you are, where you're from, and how you listen to the show, and we'll do our best to get you a shout out as well. Okay then, let's hear from today's guest. Today we have a returning guest, another member of the Two Timers Club. Can you remember the explorer, extreme athlete who walked across Mongolia, Madagascar? Well, he's fresh, back from traversing the entire length of the Yangtze River in China on foot. A world's first again that took him a year to complete. Welcome back to the Industry Angel, Ash Dykes.
Hey Ian, how's it going?
Well, it would be better if this would record a little bit better because we've already done that introduction, haven't we?
That's ace. Yeah.
I worked so hard on that intro, man.
Yeah, I think you smashed it second time round even better.
So you were just telling me about some of the fun stuff that where the journey started. So I really want to go back to that for the listeners, because what you were saying is that you travelled over to China, and before you could start, you were delayed, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So this expedition was a world first to walk, or attempt to become the first person to walk the entire length of the Yangtze River. So it's the third longest river in the world. It's the longest river to run through a single nation. And it took over 2 years to plan because, of course, it's such a sensitive country, and I needed to build up some strong relationships out there and have a team that were just 100% committed to the project. So it was a lot in the planning and the details, but I got myself out there. I got myself up to a bit of higher elevation because I was now training as well. So the source of the Yangtze is in the west of China. It's in the Tibetan Plateau, joining on to the Himalayas there. And it's at around 5,100 meters altitude. And so the plan was to get to the true scientific source and then commence the journey. But as I was telling you earlier, just getting to the source proved to be a mission in its own right. That we were delayed by 2 months because we needed to get the right authorities. We partnered up with the China government. We needed to get the right national parks involved. The authorities needed to protect wherever we were going so that we could rely on backup from them. And that took a hell of a long time. But we got through it. You know, as I say, it's meticulous planning, meticulous preparation. And then as we were attempting to get to the source, I lost 4 different members. When I say lost, they survived, of course, but they didn't lose their lives, fortunately. We got them off mountains back home safe with their family and friends, but they were suffering with altitude sickness. The film crew were in threat, worrying because the wildlife, they're all bears, there's wolves, it was now temperatures were dropping rapidly. I faced minus 20 degrees Celsius, and there were a lot of hiccups to get to the source of the Yangtze River. So the first attempt to get to the source was actually a failed attempt. I had to get my Tibetan guide, who was born at altitude, got altitude sickness. He started vomiting, he was bleeding from the nose, and he was my last remaining member, apart from our horse that we had called Castor Joy. But I got him off the mountains, we regrouped them with a stronger team, and I tried again, and this time was successful. We got to the source of the Yangtze, and then it begun. I'd have 4,000 miles of trekking to do alongside the Yangtze riverbank, and it took 352 days to complete.
You mentioned there about this was like a sensitive country, and it took 2 years to plan. So how did you do that? Did someone help you from China to plan this, or?
Oh man, yeah, we had a huge team here in the UK and in China, but the main sort of logistical team, who were also a production team filming for an international documentary, is Mandarin Films. Um, so yeah, we were connected to the government as well, and I think we needed altogether we had 12 or 14 different organizations with with the right stamps, with the right signatures, giving us access, giving us permission to get to these areas that I needed to get to. So all of that, you can imagine, took a hell of a long time. But unlike my earlier adventures, which were all pretty reckless and dangerous with zero planning, you know, the Mongolia, the Madagascar, and Mission Yangtze needed to be done properly, of course. So the planning was very intense. It was a logistical nightmare. Probably out of all of the major rivers in the world as well, I think definitely the toughest river to plan for logistically because of sensitivities. You've got to do absolutely everything by the books. But we got there. We made it. Despite being 2 months delayed, that's not too bad. But we were looking to get off the mountains. We faced an awful lot. As I mentioned, with the bears, we've been followed by a pack of wolves for a couple of days. Minus 20 degrees Celsius. There were landslides. There were snow blizzards. So it was intense. But the journey was great. It was kind of like the first 6 months was very wild. It was more like challenge and survival based. But the second half of the expedition, we opened it up. This wasn't just for a world first, of course. Same with Mongolia and Madagascar. I'm always looking at what angles. So with Mongolia, as I was raising funds for the Red Cross. I was raising awareness about climate change and the effects that it has on the nomadic way
Yeah,
of life. Madagascar, I partnered up with the Lima Network Conservation, who have 60
yeah,
organizations on the ground, helping to protect all of the unique biodiversity. And with China, I partnered up with the WWF, the Eben Fishery Department, the Green Development Foundation. I was raising awareness on the damage of plastic pollution, environmental awareness, sustainability. And so along the way, especially the second half, I was actually able to get schools involved for litter picking, have members of public involved. We wanted this to be one of the world's most interactive expeditions. And so we literally had hundreds and hundreds of people joining at different times. We had Chinese celebrities, we had big brands, organizations. So I loved that. It's not just about the trekking and the survival and the challenges. It's about making it interactive, getting people involved. And as my friend says it, it's sort of explore to conserve, which puts a bigger reason behind it as well. So it was a great journey, but a whole year, so a long one.
yeah. So I mean, the first part of it there, the first 6 months, you were alone quite a lot at that time.
Yeah, I was. I would have preferred to have been with someone. This wasn't a solo and unsupported trek like the Mongolia. We could have people join, but I think it was by the fourth month, 10 of the 16 people that individually joined me, different sections, had to abandon the expedition again due to altitude or injury or fear of wildlife. So even my UK photographer flew out to join me for 2 weeks, but he faced a landslide, and it's tricky. It's tricky because this is what I'm experienced in. I've been doing this for the best part of a decade now.
Yeah,
But for my UK photographer, that's his passion, that's his expertise, is photography. And so now to be brought into my world, if you like, and be faced with a landslide that is terrifying, that is risky. It's not a case of winning or losing. It's now a case of living or dying on whether you get to the other side. So we ended up going home on the first day after 6 hours. We made the right choice. It was very difficult, very sketchy to try to navigate that landslide, of course. But that happened quite a
sure.
lot with lots of different people from all over the world. So, and that made it quite tough mentally as well because I was excited. I looked forward to trekking with
Yeah,
people. It got boring. It did get lonely as well. So when people joined, it was exciting. I had someone to communicate, to converse with. So when they would disappear after only one day, it's like, damn, I'm back to solo trekking. Here we go.
across the whole year, were you always over in China? Didn't you come back to the UK, or
No,
did
I
you?
didn't go back to the UK. What I did is I surprised my sister for her wedding in Vegas. Yeah,
Ah, that's right. I knew you'd done something. Yeah.
that's it. So I had to contact the Guinness Book of Records. Of course, I wouldn't put the expedition at jeopardy. They gave me the green light. They said
Sure.
on long haul journeys you can have up to 2 weeks. I said perfect. I only need a day, and then I literally flew in
Yeah.
for the wedding, surprised my sister and her now husband. Was there for the wedding the next day, and then boom, straight back to the Yangtze. And so the contrast was crazy. You know,
Wow.
yeah, you
I
know
bet
what I
it
mean.
was.
So that was mental, but the reaction was priceless. You know, both in tears.
Yeah. I saw the social stuff. I was like, wow, you're a
It was
legend, man.
great. It was great. And then back to the grind. Yeah, back to the grind.
Let us take you back to that grind then, because something you mentioned there about the kind of mental aspect was tough. So obviously, you do a lot of physical training for this. Ash, you're always posting stuff about fitness and getting yourself
Yeah.
right in that peak fitness, ready for it. What about the mental training, Ash? Is there anything you need to do there? Did you need to have some kind of, being alone or?
The physical training helps to build me mentally. So
Yeah,
when I came back from Thailand back in 2013, I was living out there, as a Muay Thai fighter and a scuba diving instructor. So when
yeah,
I came back home, I had to move in with my parents because I didn't have any funds whatsoever. And I was trying to save up for this world first walk across Mongolia. And when I came back, I had such little funds that I couldn't even afford bloody gym membership here. I was literally like, what the?
right.
And so I had my uncle drop me off a tractor tire. I got a little sledgehammer, and I was doing all of the training just in my garage and in my back garden. And often I was waking up, really early in the morning. It was still dark. It was raining, wet, cold, miserable. But I would be under those warm, dry sheets in bed, and and I can hear it howling outside. But I knew that I wouldn't have that
Yeah,
option out in Mongolia to just stay in my tent. I knew that I had to
yeah,
get out and crack on. So that's what I kept telling myself. So I'd get out of my house, I'd go flip the tractor tire, beat it with a sledgehammer, work on a lot of inner core strength and calisthenics, trying to build up the durability of my body, ready to pull an 18-stone trailer across the Altai Mountains, the Gobi Desert, and steppe. And so indirectly by training physically, that was preparing me mentally. I was making myself as uncomfortable as I possibly could in the hope that I would eventually become more comfortable. And when I went out to Mongolia, it wouldn't come as such a shock. It's because it would be something that I've visualized, that I've prepared for, that I have been out in the grind in cold weather, mud and rain all over me, out in the back garden. Of course, it's completely different to what it would be like in Mongolia, but I do really believe that helped not only physically but mentally. I was thinking of worst case scenario, and the same again with the Yangtze trip. I was wearing an altitude trainer mask because I'm here at sea level here in North Wales, and I would be carrying a rucksack weighing 30 or 35 kilograms. So to train in my back garden, I continued the same method. Of course, I'm past that. Fortunately, I do have the funds, but the method that I worked on in my garden, almost the self-taught training regime that I prepared for Mongolia, I've continued doing it. It worked once, it worked twice in Madagascar. So I did that again with China, and was just saying if there's going to be wolves, expect to be attacked. If there's going to be blizzards, expect them to be the biggest. And I'm just sort of visualizing that process, not because I want to face wolves or blizzards, but if it was to happen, at least it doesn't come as a shock. It comes as something that I did visualize, I did expect. Now that it's happened, crack on with it. I think as humans, we often panic when something happens that we weren't expecting. It catches us by surprise, and it's that fight or flight. Whereas I was trying to prepare myself so much mentally, the fact that if something was to happen, I would have already visualized it happening. So now it's not a shock. It's something I imagine. So crack on with the process.
you just sprung something in mind there because you talk about blizzards. So the 4,000 miles of the Yangtze that you traversed. So lots of different climates there. So in terms of kit,
Oh, it was
you must have had so
ridiculous.
much, Ash.
Yeah, I had a lot of kit, especially for the first. Although saying that, I had a lot of kit, but the first 3 weeks, the film crew got altitude sickness. They left the expedition and left us with their horse. So, so that came in pretty handy. So good old Castor Troy, um, he all of a sudden went from carrying their sort of heavy camera kit, he could cope, of course, to now just my 35 kilogram backpack, which was nothing. It's kind of like carrying a young teenager, or So it worked for
Yeah.
me. It worked for him. But then, obviously, when we sold him to a good home in the mountains, we cracked on, and I had then the rest of the year to trek with this backpack. There was no escaping. But yeah, all of the kit. So in order to make this one of the world's most interactive, I needed the right satellite communications to be able to live stream it, to be able to broadcast, to be able to take interviews,
Yeah.
and to be able to post blogs and images and videos, etc. So I had the Navarino technologies, which allowed me to do that. We kept the website up to date in terms of we had a live tracking system, and people who wanted to follow the journey could literally zoom in and see my exact location within 5 meters. So there was all of the satellite kit. I did have a production team, and throughout the year, I was constantly sent different production teams to capture the footage that we
Mhm.
needed for the documentary. However, towards the start, I did need to self-film a lot of it because the film crew were getting injured or getting altitude sickness. So I had to carry the drone. So there was a lot of electronics, you can imagine, with that, with the camera kit, with the spare batteries, with the cables. The food, I had to carry a lot of food, the gasoline, the little stove, kit to be able to survive the -20 conditions with the right tents. And so, yeah, it did amount to around 30 to 35 kilograms for the first few months. But as I started to gradually get further east into a more populated China, I was able to get rid of this kit and actually drop down to smaller rucksacks, which was great. I just didn't need to carry as much.
I tell you what, Ash, I'm sure that horse could have carried 100 kilograms. He could have jumped on
Yeah, I
its
tell
back
you
as
what,
well
I would
as
have
the kid,
cheated
surely.
myself. I would have, people would say like, "Oh, you should jump on the horse." It's like, yeah, but whether the world would find out or not, it doesn't matter. I would know. And I would have cheated myself. But actually, saying that, even my tracking device, because it was for the Guinness Book of Records and they're so thorough, the tracking device actually logs your speed as well. Every 5 minutes for
Wow, yeah, really.
352 days, a point would be sent off to the satellite with my altitude, my speed, my longitude and latitude coordinates, the lot. Yeah, so it was very thorough.
Wow. Yeah, you mentioned food, Ash. So, like across the year, I'm sure there's a point where I saw you. I think you hadn't ate for a little bit, and your physique must have changed. I mean, you probably got yourself in like really good shape before you got there. But I don't know about you, but when you get yourself in a good position, you look good, right? And then your diet goes, your training goes, and you
Yeah,
start to,
really
did
good
your body
point.
change that much and stuff?
You know what? I'm surprised it didn't. I did lose 10. Was it 10? Yeah, about 10 kilograms, let's say.
Wow.
But I think it was because of the rucksack, because I was trying to stay kind of disciplined with certain I was kind of training along the way, not just for the
Yeah.
walking, but sometimes, when I say sometimes, once a week, once every 2 weeks, I would get down, smash out some push-ups and sit-ups and whatnot, just to keep my body sharp, really, more than
Yeah.
anything. But yeah, I was still toned, but I was a skinny toned.
Right.
I was stripped of all body fat, but you could still see a slight physique. But yeah, I'd lost a lot of weight, but I felt strong, and of course, I was more trained sports specifically. I was like a camel. I could walk for days. I could just keep on walking. So I was skinny, but my body was fit for purpose.
So, but did I get that right? Or was there some times where you didn't eat for a bit of time? Or
Yeah, that was mainly in the mountains. So on the
right,
Tibetan plateau, we carried ration packs because we couldn't find any evidence of any locals for the first few weeks. Luckily, we did come across locals, but my guides, they didn't bring um, their food. They brought a bit of food. Yeah, so what we had to scout to see if there were any locals, and we couldn't find any evidence of locals for the first 3 weeks. Luckily, there was. We just couldn't find any on the satellite and the mapping. So we carried enough ration packs to last the first 3 weeks. However, my two guides that joined me only brought a small amount of food. So they ended up dipping into my ration packs.
Wow.
Couldn't see them go hungry, of course. And so we went through the ration packs in like a week and a half. And so, yeah, we were hungry. We were hungry, man.
You're saying there was no locals, so you didn't see anybody for a few weeks.
No, we had planned that we wouldn't see any locals for the first 3 weeks because we
Wow.
couldn't find any evidence on any maps or on the satellite. But luckily we did. We did come across nomads in their yurt or their
Okay.
yurt. So
Yeah.
that's effectively once we were out of ration packs after that first week, which we really needed because we didn't really see many locals the first week. After that, we were coming across more gurs, more yurts, and they would supply us with food to take along on our journey, which was great.
How did you pay them, Ash? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, we would offer. A lot
Uh-huh.
of them wouldn't accept.
Right.
Yeah, some would, because a lot of them they just see it sometimes as disrespectful if you offer them
Yeah.
money, kind of
Yeah.
making up that I'm richer than you, so therefore you take my money. Whereas
Yes.
they're there to help you through their harsh environment that they know better than anyone. So that always worked. But I would always, make sure I tried to give them money. Sometimes they would just chase me, and it's funny. Like even in restaurants in China, if you leave a
Mhm.
tip. So I've done it before. I've left I've left a tip in a restaurant, before the expedition, after the expedition, whenever, and I have been chased. And it'll be a little, it'll be a girl or a guy tap me on the shoulder, and they'll be giving me the tip money back, and I'm like, no, that's yours, and they're like, no, no, take it, and they'll force it in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that in China before, actually. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
experienced that. Yeah.
yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's mad.
Yeah.
It's just such great people.
Did you pick any of the language up? Because I just couldn't speak anything.
I did Wushu Zhongwen Idian Zhongwen Hennan. I just said I did speak a little bit of Chinese, but Mandarin was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I skipped all of the basics. I went straight to the sentences like where are the bears and are there wolves here and where's food. So I went straight to. But yeah, I'd say I was trying my best to learn, but of course there's over 100 different dialects across China, and that first region that we were in, they all spoke Tibetan. I couldn't even communicate with my guides.
Really?
Yeah, because they speak Tibetan and not so much Chinese. And of course, I spoke Chinese, and then their Chinese, that the little that they know is a different dialect, and
Yes.
so there was no communication. Sometimes I felt lonelier on my solo and unsupported walk. Lonelier in the Tibetan plateau than I did on my solo and unsupported walk in Mongolia. You
Wow.
know, um, but yeah, we got by, and we went through thick and thin, but our bond, mine and the guides, our bond built, and we still keep in touch because we use WeChat, which is kind of like WhatsApp, but it translates messages, so we can.
Ah, really?
Yeah, yeah. So that's great. They reach out and vice versa now and again, just check in. I always try to keep in touch with my guides because most of these expeditions that I see people take on, I think that the guides don't get enough credit. So I always make sure to talk about to give credit to the guides because they were the ones that also helped to make it a success. They were a big part of it. So I always keep in touch and visit them when I can, and yeah, both in Madagascar and China. So that's great.
Yeah. Good man, good man. We're talking earlier on about kit there, and you took a lot of kit with you. It got me thinking about protection. So obviously you're going through some harsh climates there and a lot of solo stuff. You've mentioned bears and wolves. So could you take any protection on you?
Took a
Weapon?
took a whistle.
Really? What, your two fingers?
I took a whistle and an air horn.
Oh my God.
Oh man! Well, we can't carry any weaponry,
Yeah.
of course. A knife. I did try to take a knife, but it got confiscated as I flew to the most western, or one of the most western cities close to the source. But then I did pick up another local knife. That vanished. That went somewhere. I'm not sure what happened to that. But our main point was an air horn and a whistle. So the main attacks from bears actually come from where you randomly bump into them. Say if you come to the top of a hill and there's a bear on the top of it, or you're going through the forest and you turn around a corner and there's a bear right in front of you. So that'll freak them out, and as defense, they'll attack you, and that's very common. in Tibet, in those regions, in Qinghai province, it's very common. So what we wanted to do was any sensitive areas that we thought could have bears, we would blow the whistle. And so effectively that way we are making the bear aware that we are here and
Yeah.
that we're getting closer. And normally they'll walk away. They don't want anything to do with you. However, if you're walking in the wrong season of the year, like what we did, and the bears were now looking for food before they go into hibernation, then they don't care. And that's what we were faced with. And that was my biggest concern. That was my biggest worry. As I said, I went out there with a healthy mindset, like we'll be fine. But again, the locals were telling us otherwise. And if the locals worry or panic, you should definitely be panicking and worrying. So I always stick by that and just tried my best to stay vigilant. Even a local laughed, saying an air horn. It will do nothing. He says. I watched across the other side of the river. There was a local in a hut. There were bears inside his hut, and when he came back from cutting down trees for his fire, he also clocked on to the bears, and he was on his motorbike. So he revved his engine, he beeped his horns, hoping to scare the bears out of his hut. The bears came out of the hut, but they chased him, and they almost caught him. They didn't care about the noise of the bike or the horn, so that made us start to doubt our air horn too.
So Ash, tell me a little bit about what one of your days was like. Like, what does a typical day look like?
Typical day would be we'd wake up at around the guides wanted to stay in bed till like 6.
I bet they did.
Yeah, we were always arguing in different languages. I was shouting at them in English, they were shouting at me in Tibetan. This one morning, right, it was 5:30. It was still dark, but we were in a sense. Honestly, it literally went from Mission Yangtze to Mission Escape and Evade. We needed to escape this region that was super sensitive, and we needed to evade the locals because we found that it was the locals, as amazing as they are, which they genuinely are. They were calling the police because they were worried that they've seen a Westerner that they rarely ever see in these parts. So, of course, they've got to report it. And then the police would rock up on our tents at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And they would take us in. They'd take us in to be questioned. And so we realized that we needed to escape this sensitive area, evade the locals. The best way to do that was to wake up whilst it was still dark so that we could scoot on past any nomads that we came across. But this one morning, there were wild yak not far from our tent. So whilst I'm getting up, packed the tent, I'm shouting to my guides, let's go, lads. We agreed to wake up by 5:30 and to be gone before 6. But of course, it was hard to communicate that. And then my guide sort of sticks his head out the tent, shouts at me in Tibetan, like plonks his head back in, and zips up the tent. And I'm like, what's going on? And he kept doing it. And they were both shouting. I was like, what? Really? They just want an extra 30 minutes in bed? But what they were trying to say, I figured out, is that there were wild yak not far from us. So I clocked that. So I started calling them girls in Chinese. Like, come on, don't be girls. They're only cows. Get out and let's crack on. Anyway, fast forward 2.5 weeks, and for the first time, we were actually able to communicate via a translator who had joined us. And I found out that the wild yak can be more brutal than the bears, and they often scare away bears and have been known to slaughter horses. And their worry was cast a choy outside the tent. But then if we make any noises or disturbances, they may also attack us. It was the mating season, so they can be aggressive, and they are built like a tank. You've got the standard yaks, which aren't that big, but the wild yak are almost double the size. They are. But I didn't know that, so I was saying they're only cattle. You girls, get out, let's crack on. I was misinformed. They educated me 2.5 weeks later, and then I was like, got you. Now I can see why you stayed in your tent hiding from the wild yak. But that would be an average day: is wake up at 5 o'clock, set off at 5:30, especially if we're in the sensitive areas. Try to avoid the locals, and we would then walk 30 kilometers per day at that altitude over the mountains, along the gorges. Sometimes stopping for food if they were local, sometimes not, just cracking on, and then having some tamba, which is your typical Tibetan sort of wheat barley mixed with water. It's kind of like putting plain flour, mixing that with water and then eating it. wasn't tasty at all, but that's
Yeah.
all we had. So that was a typical day for the first few weeks. Then it got better. We were coming across more locals. We were out of the sensitive area. They were always really warm and inviting, and that's what it's all about. The documentary, especially, it was about capturing the locals. Not my opinion on how I view it. It's about capturing the locals' opinion, their way of life, their culture, their traditions, how they live. That's what I love, and that's what I travel for. Is to meet people as amazing people all over the world, and each has an incredible story to tell. So I really wanted to capture that and showcase the west side of China in all its beauty and diversity. And I think we did a good job at that, not just in the rural parts, but even the urban. Interviewing the younger generation and their take on the older generation and certain dying out traditions, and vice versa, the older generation on the younger generation and their new way of life with modern technology. So it was really an interesting and captivating journey with lots of story and content throughout.
Wow. So when's the documentary going to come out, Ash?
So we're looking to release it towards the end of next month. I will actually
Wow, really?
announce dates and channels the middle of next month.
Fantastic. Oh, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, I bet you can't wait for that.
Can't wait, yeah, because we tried this with Mongolia, tried it with Madagascar,
I remember, yeah.
right footage. But this time, as I say, Mandarin Films, they've filmed all sorts. They filmed Leonardo DiCaprio whilst he was filming Before the Flood. They're doing what's that new series by Jeremy Clarkson? Kind of similar to Top Gear, isn't it? But
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
so they were shooting him out in China. So they were the best ones to have on the ground for logistics because they just know the country thoroughly. But we went into a proper collaboration. I still work with them now with the China government flying. I've been back to China about 4 or 5 times since I finished the
Yeah.
expedition. So that again, they were just sending film crew out. They were capturing as much footage as they could, lots of different story, lots of content, and yeah, can't wait to finally release it. Yeah, because you'll see, it's not necessarily just about the challenge and the survival. It is very much about China and so many unique stories all the way through.
Yeah. Tell us about the end, Ash, because didn't you have some friends and family go out to the end?
Yeah, so the end was great, and even the build up towards the end, I was doing, they were so supportive. China, they would invite me in to do talks. So I'd go in there, I'd present alongside the Yangtze in these big shopping malls that would have these huge banners promoting myself and Mission Yangtze, which was crazy.
Wow, seeing your face on those banners.
Oh man, I tell you what, they went to extreme efforts, which was massively appreciated. The support was unbelievable. Like even Adidas reached out at one point asking if we can help them launch. Do you know Jet Li, the movie star?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Oh, I
They're,
did see that, yeah.
yeah, he's launched a new brand, co-branded range with Adidas, and it was a photo shoot for GQ with Jackie Huang, who's like a big movie star in China.
Yeah.
So that started more promotions around Mission Yangtze, and then celebs would be joining, and they would go live, man. They would live stream. They'd be with me for a day. So for 7 hours straight, they would be live to around 1.3 million people, and they
Wow.
would hold 1.3 million people live. And that's like, there's 3 different tiers. I would say that's the bottom tier of celebrity status, let alone if you were at the middle or the top. And they're like, yeah, if I'm under like 800,000 or a million views, I just cancel. I'm like, what?
Yeah, me too, mate.
The numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that brought up a lot of hype, and there were over 100 people joining me for the last few kilometers. We were live streaming to millions across the world. We were joined by TV stations. The British Consulate General launched their Green is Great sustainability campaign on the day that I would finish the expedition. I had family, I had friends. Oh, it was amazing. It was so busy. At the end, I had to cancel my own event because it was just so busy with different interviews coming all over the world that was the focus. Get the message out there and whatnot. So it was straight to the finish line. I jumped into the East China Sea where the Yangtze pours into, and then straight into a room where I could just smash out all of these meetings. I think I was up till 2 or 3 a.m. because the different time zones. And then again, 3-4 hours sleep before they're caught by BBC World News, and it was crazy, man. It was really cool, really cool.
Did you have to wait to complete the end for a couple of days? Was there some bad weather or something?
Yeah.
I thought I saw that.
There was a storm called Storm Lakima, and they said it was the biggest storm that they've had in 30 years. Trust it. to be on the day that I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
I would be where the land meets the sea, so it would be at the very, at the very.
Yeah.
And so, maybe I could have just gone for it, but I had brands out there. I had my sponsors, Chinese-based sponsors, who were organising an event. I also had people wanting to join. I had family and friends fly from the other side of the world to join me for this. So it would have been selfish for me to just try to complete it. So we did. I sheltered up for 2 days, waited out the storm, and then we finished it properly and in style. Unlike Mongolia and Madagascar, hey.
It's funny we're talking about there. We're talking about numbers and live stream and that sort of stuff. Well, you're gonna have to tell us. You're gonna have to drop this in, Ash. You've just been over to see Joe Rogan, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Literally only was it a week, 2 weeks ago? Invited
Yeah.
over, just flew straight from the UK to Los Angeles. Was on the Joe Rogan podcast, which was amazing. It's gone ridiculous since then, with many email requests, many podcast requests, just different agencies reaching out. It's great, and more importantly, a lot of people writing that felt inspired from the story, because the main messages that I always want to get across is, there's no financial background with myself, there's no university degree, and there's no military background either. Not that any of those are bad, because they're all very
Yeah.
good. But what I'm saying is, regardless to whether you think you have the right skills or not, you can still go after it. You can teach yourself. You can learn from people as you go, and that's what I've done. When it comes to survival, I've learned from the communities. When it comes to these expeditions, I have been told that they are impossible. Soldiers have tried and failed, so what chance do you have? But by holding the vision, by protecting and nurturing your dream, and staying focused on the main goal, and with the right preparation experience, anything can be done. And that's my message: is whatever background you come from, whatever dream, whatever passion, doesn't matter if no one else can't see it for you. Because what's important is if you can see it for yourself and go after it regardless.
Yeah, Ash, I've saw some of the stuff after you did the Joe Rogan stuff, and I've saw Twitter and lots of replies, and everyone really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Instagram shot up over 50,000 followers as well. And
Has
along
Has
that
it?
came a lot of messages from lots of different people. Yeah, people who have listened to it 2-3 times. People who are now setting
Wow.
goals. One lady said that she's now quit her job. She handed a notice in. Yeah,
Wow.
I just had.
You did that, mate.
It's amazing. It is amazing. The more that I can get that out there, the better. A guy who just was working at a fish and chip shop in little North Wales, to then hopefully sharing stories that makes people think about whatever their dream is, to go after it regardless.
Did you tell Joe that his podcast was your second favourite?
I did. Of course, I did.
Right. Well, do you know what it is? I'm not even going to ask you this question, right? I'm not even going to ask you what's next, because I don't want to know, because you just blew me mind.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's about thinking smart now. So in terms of another year-long expedition, I can see Mission Yangtze being the biggest in terms of
Yeah.
duration-wise. Business is just too busy, so I can't be taking a whole year out.
Yeah.
But I will be doing something just as extreme, just as ambitious. I love the angles that I've been going with, really close to my heart. When it comes to environmental, when it comes to sustainability,
Sure.
I will be working closely with bigger firms like that, similar to the WWF. But I also love the interactivity. Get people involved. Why not? Get people on board instead of just watching from your phones. You can actually be a part of it. Join me, whether it's an hour, whether it's a day. So I love that. I like people in general, and the more people I can get to join and experience, and it might just change their way or enhance their way, whatever it may be, then we want to go for that. But it will be TV. We are looking for TV.
Yeah.
And we do have a good 10 different ideas. We are in talks with the team. It's exciting. It's exciting. It's an exciting place to be right now.
See, the difference between me and you, Ash, I've got a face for radio, right? And you're talking about doing TV.
Yeah, well, we don't know if we'll get TV.
You will, man. You will. You'll be there.
Say, hey, you don't have the face either, Ash, for TV,
Well, listen, Ash, I honestly really appreciate your time. You could tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yes, if you want to follow the journey, I am on Instagram, just Ash_Dykes. The surname is Dykes. I'm on the YouTube, the Twitter, the website is ashdykes.com. The book is Mission Possible if you're interested in finding out more. But no, I really appreciate that, Ian. Thanks for having me on. Again, it's been good talking to you since the last time, 4 years ago? I think it was the last podcast I did with you.
Wow.
So much appreciated.
No, it's good. I love following your journey, Ash, and I know a lot of my friends do as well. And you know, it is, you're all over different platforms, which is great as well. Stuff like LinkedIn, I love to see you on LinkedIn because, you know, yes, we might be in business and entrepreneurship and that kind of thing, but some of the stuff you do, and it just crosses so many generations and lifestyles and everything, you know. So you're inspiring a lot of people, mate.
Appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. It's it's great, and I appreciate your support.
Good stuff. Right. Okay, Ash. Well, we'll see you after the next one, eh?
Yes, 100%.
There you go. Another world's first for Ash. Inspirational stuff. We'll be sure to keep supporting Ash, and I'll let you know when the documentary's out. Keep an eye out on the social posts as well. You know you can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I think if you grab your phone now and look at the show notes, you'll see some links to my Twitter feeds and my handles, so you can get me there. So until next time, I'm Ian Farrer. This is the Industry Angel, and thanks for listening.